So this session is going to be fairly open-ended, fairly interactive. I just want to give you a sense of the way we've used digital technology as part of the Open Justice Project. And I'm delighted my colleague Jamie Daniels is here to showcase the virtual reality app for us later on in the presentation. So just as a heads up, towards the end of the session, we will be handing out some headsets for you to actually have a go at what Jamie's going to show you. So Jamie, if you could just show that headset, that's the thing you're looking for later on. There's some at the table at the back. Now in the meantime, if you want to access the app that we're going to show you, you can download it onto your smartphone. So this is one of those occasions where the teacher won't mind if his students are fiddling around with their phones during the class. So it's Open Justice VR is what you need to search for at the usual application stores, so Android or Apple stores. So the content then of this presentation really is to talk about how we're trying to use digital innovation in the Open University to develop employability and support the social justice agenda. So I'm a fan of Have I Got News For You? So those of you who watch that TV programme might know this format. It's a very easy one to get you started today. You can see some pictures. I don't know how clearly they're coming out to you here. You can see what's going on in these pictures. You've got Rumpole, Rumpole bottom right, well spotted. Rumpole of the Bailey, for those of you who don't know, very famous fictional barrister. What else have we got? Something quite close to home, hopefully. Driverless cars. Where are those driverless cars? Milton Keynes, yeah. So proud to be Milton Keynes. And then the one on the top right, what's that? You've got the hands off the wheel, obviously driverless car. Tesla. Anyone got a Tesla yet? No, thought not. I can't afford a Tesla. I'd love a Tesla, but I don't have one. So what's the connection? I'm here to try to talk to you about digital innovation. Well, which one's the odd one out, would you say? Rumpole in many ways. Yeah, I think that's definitely what I was hoping you'd say. We've got Rumpole, the epitome of the traditional lawyer. You know, someone who would probably never have used a computer or mobile phone, certainly not virtual reality in any of his cases. And you've got the driverless cars, which I would say, you know, this is something that we're all thinking about, the impact of automation on society. You know, I've read some really interesting articles, as I'm sure you have, about the potential change to our economy, our society that automotive technologies such as driverless vehicles will have. Apparently there are about 1 million people employed as drivers of some sort in the UK economy at the moment. And if we go to a situation where those jobs are taken out of the economy, it raises big questions about how our economy will adapt. Now, I would make the case that although superficially Rumpole would seem very far away from these kind of technological developments, but equally within the legal services sector, the legal profession is also being impacted by automation, by technology. And my question really for us today is to consider how we as a university, we as the law school should be guiding our law students, preparing them for an environment that is fast changing, being transformed by technology. So the law isn't immune from these changes in technology. We're living in an unprecedented era of technological change, I would argue, and the IT services and the internet are already radically changes the way in which legal services are being delivered, about the way legal research is being done. For example, you know, even when I first started my legal studies, it was more common to do your legal research using paper-based resources. You would go to a law library, and the law library would have to be stocked up with paper, hard copy bound volumes of law cases. You would go to a series of statutes to look for the same things, which would be in hard copy, and you'd have to go to a lever arch file with loose leaf papers where the updates to those pieces of legislation or case law could be found before the bound copies were available. All that's been transformed by online databases for doing the researches. Algorithms are getting much more powerful in the way legal research can be conducted. An experiment was done by some computer scientists working with some lawyers to actually build an algorithm that could predict fairly successfully what the outcome of cases would be at the European Court of Human Rights using a computer algorithm, comparing them to decided cases, and their accuracy rate was about 80%. And that's given the fact they didn't have all the information the judge did beforehand. So we're seeing a situation where technology is impacting upon the way in which legal business, the court system, the way in which justice is delivered. And one example of that is that within the civil court system, we're moving towards some small claims issues being dealt with entirely online. So all these things are happening to the legal sector as well. So it's not just the issue of driverless cars where automation is impacting, it really is impacting in law as well. So Richard Susskind is a very famous law professor who writes on technology, and he's making the same argument as me. Well, really, I'm making the same argument as him, to be honest. But he's making the argument that, look, the legal profession is changing, and it's having, as in with many knowledge-based service industries, technology, we're starting to see the ripple effects of how it's going to change the way the business is done, and also, therefore, how we should prepare our graduates to enter that. So I've got a few questions I'd like you to keep in the back of your mind during the rest of the presentation. Firstly, how can we, as a university, help students navigate a world that's being transformed by digital technology? What role, in particular, should we, as the Open University Law School, play in helping students navigate this changing landscape? And also I'd like you to reflect on your own businesses, your own work, your own professional lives, about how technology is transforming the way that you're working, and whether anything in the way that we're doing kind of strikes a chord about being useful for what you're doing. So those are the questions hopefully we'll get to when we reach the end of the presentation. So I'd like you to bear those in mind. So as far as this 20 minutes or so we've got together, what I'd like to do is give you some detail about the Open Justice Centre and how we are using digital innovation to prepare students for this changing legal landscape, this changing economy. So I'll talk a little about the context in which we're operating, and I'll explain how we're trying to develop a programme of clinical legal education. So I'll explain what that means and how we are doing it in a distance learning setting. I'll talk a little bit about the teaching approaches we're taking in terms of delivering teaching in a digital format, and how that impacts upon employability skills. And also I'll give an overview of how we're using digital technology to develop our community outreach and social justice agenda. Okay. So to begin with, I'd like to put what we're doing in context of what's happening elsewhere in the university. So I'm going to show you a short film that puts the way in which we've developed our clinical legal education module, W360, in the context of the digital by design agenda that the Open University is running.
On our introductory sport module, 70% of our new students are under the age of 30, so we've simply got to think of their world.
W360, Justice in Action, is a practical legal module. The academics behind it have always taught online, so it's what they're used to.
When we started thinking about producing S111, which is Questions in Science, the introductory level science module, we thought we've got a lot more students that are younger that are coming in to the university, and they're probably more used to working in a digital manner.
And their world is a very immersed, online and interactive world, often using two screens open at the same time.
People might assume that going into a law firm might mean being surrounded by dusty old law books, but that isn't the reality any longer. Most legal information now is stored online, and most legal research is done by online databases.
We thought it's less about actually writing the module, more about creating it and making it as animated and as live as possible.
So we've got to reflect the world they live in and also make it as interactive and exciting as we can.
Teaching online gives you a huge range of opportunities to bring in interactive and bespoke digital content.
We work really closely with our LTI colleagues, and we use their expertise as much as ours. We've got an online flame test, for instance, where students can pick different chemicals and put them in a flame and see what colour the flame turns to. We've got a digital microscope, which is fantastic. You can zoom in on different cell types and you can get to seeing the nucleus in some cells.
One of the ways we've used online is to issue every single student with a step counter, the little device you wear on your wrist, sometimes called a fitness tracker. So not only do people collect their own personal data, but they then share it with the rest of the group, the whole cohort, using an app.
We've worked closely with LTI to develop a virtual reality application to allow students to practice and develop presentation skills in an immersive online classroom environment. And students can record themselves and see themselves back from the position of an audience member to assess their own performance.
One of the other things that we did for S111, which was really positively received by students, was a live debate. And the debate title was, "Where is it best to look for life, Mars or icy moons?" And we ran that debate live, so students could attend face-to-face, but an awful lot watched online as well. That was a real success.
Another thing we do is to use augmented reality for the students to explore the human body, so they can tour around the various parts of the body and the skeleton, the muscles, and see how it works in 3 dimensions as opposed to just an image on a page.
No one thought that we would be leaving the European Union before the referendum, and lo and behold, we are. Teaching online allows the potential to change these resources to keep them fresh, keep them focused, and keep them relevant for our students. So by teaching online, we're able to navigate and help students orientate themselves in the digital world of legal practice.
Now we've done it, I think the major thing I feel is relief, because I think it has come together really well. The retention rate is good, the pass rate is good, so we're very pleased with that. And the student feedback, which actually is probably the most important thing to me, has been overwhelmingly positive. And the other thing I would say is that we have had a higher retention and pass rate amongst students that are brand new to the Open University and students in the younger age group. So I think the online content of S111 does tend to appeal to these sorts of students.
What that video shows is how, in a way I'm very fortunate to be working at the Open University, because this approach of digital innovation isn't something only that is taking place within the law school. So there's a kind of an acceptance within the university that digital innovation is something that we should be embracing and heading towards. But what I want to do is explain a little bit about the way in which our particular project, the Open Justice Project, fits in with this commitment to digital innovation. So it's important that you understand the kind of students that we have and the scale in which we operate. The Open University Law School is the largest provider of undergraduate legal education in the United Kingdom. We have about 6,000 undergraduate students, all of which are open access students. So no particular prior qualifications are required to start our law degree. And within the whole DNA of the Open University, and certainly within the law school, there's a commitment to ideas of social justice and to help actually develop the law school and also to further the aims of the social justice agenda within the law school. The Open Justice Centre was launched in September 2016, and the aims of the centre are to provide opportunities for students to engage in clinical legal education, to use technology in an innovative way, to promote values, ethics and professional identity, increase students' employability skills, and also to develop the community engagement of the law school. So what I'm going to do now is explain what I mean by clinical legal education. So anybody from the medical sciences here? So you'd be familiar with the idea of clinical education within medical sciences. It's very much part of the training of doctors and nurses is clinical practice. So working in real or simulated practice situations to develop skills. Now, this approach to legal education, having practice experience as part of the academic studies, is something that's fairly recent within the UK setting. It's something that was established really more, has been more long established within the US system, and it's been something that's come to some universities in the late 60s and has developed a little bit of momentum since the 90s within the UK sector. So what does clinical legal education mean within this sector? Well, it means doing things such as providing legal advice to clients under supervision. It means using legal skills such as presentation skills in real settings. So it's students being supervised to act like lawyers in certain confined contexts under supervision. Now, I've argued that this is likely to be more significant in the UK in the coming years, because you may be aware that there are changes afoot to the way the qualification process for solicitors is being managed. So there is a new qualifying exam for solicitors, the SQE, Solicitors Qualifying Examination, that's going to be rolled out over the next few years, which will put more of a premium, we think, on practical, skills-based, work-based learning within the undergraduate setting. So that's the kind of context we're talking about in terms of delivering clinical legal education. Now, I can anticipate that you might be having some thoughts about delivering clinical legal education to the number of students that we have and in the diverse settings in which they live. Now, all of you will, I'm sure, will be aware that because of the way that we operate, open access, distance learning, we have a significant minority of students with disabilities, a significant minority of students with work commitments, family commitments that mean it's difficult for them to take part in activities during office hours. So there are some real challenges for us in delivering clinical legal education at a distance. But there are also opportunities, as we've seen in terms of the video, about the kind of thinking, the kind of technology that's available to us to try and deliver aspects of clinical legal education in an online environment. So what we've done is we've put in place a solution which embraces some face-to-face activities. So we've got students who have been working in the prison sector, giving presentations and doing legal research for groups within prisons. So we've had 4, 5 prisons in England where students have been working. We've got a schools programme where students will go in to deliver street law presentations in schools across the United Kingdom. Also, we've developed an online legal advice clinic which provides opportunities for students to deliver free legal advice under the supervision of qualified solicitors to members of the public over an online platform. And also, we've been developing as a faculty level links with the free advice sector to try and leverage the kind of expertise and resources that the Open University has developed in online learning to support the work of the free advice sector in terms of developing online training and education provision on an open access platform. So that's the kind of societal input we're having, in addition to the positive impact our students will have by providing legal information, advice and education to members of the public. So the challenge really, especially when it comes to supporting students at a distance to prepare them to do some of this clinical work, is that you don't necessarily have the luxury of having your students in the room with you to develop these often practical skills. So this time, probably about 18 months ago, well, maybe about 18 months ago, we were a bit at a loss about how to go around thinking of developing these skills. And then Jamie rode to our rescue and gave us some ideas about using virtual reality technology to give students an immersive experience to develop their presentation skills. So what I'd like to do now is give you a brief demonstration of our virtual reality application, which we use as part of our Open Justice module, W360, Justice in Action, to prepare students to deliver presentations in either a prison environment or a school environment or a community environment, which supports their street law activity. And in doing so, we have tried to develop a learning opportunity for students to develop practical employability skills using this innovative digital technology. So, Jamie, are you able to demonstrate how it works? Yeah. So, just to put it in context, this comes as this just as Jamie set it up, I'll give you some background as to how it's used. So, this is part of our W360 module, which is on presentation skills. There's a unit on developing presentation skills. And students are giving a brief that they have to present a 15-minute presentation to either a school or a prison group, and they're told they'll do it in this immersive environment. So they'll have prepared a set of slides and some information to deliver, and then they will enter this virtual world.
Yep. So I'm just going to demo the app. I'll run through it quite quickly because there's quite a lot here. But just to explain, we showed you the mobile headsets. First of all, this is the high-end versus Oculus Rift. This is the kind of the high-end version. We wouldn't expect students to own this kind of equipment because it's too expensive. Plus, it needs quite a high-end PC to run it off. So the mobile version was a way of delivering virtual reality technology now to students just using a standard mobile phone. Hence the reason why we've got sort of two versions of it. But I'll just quickly run through the app. What you can see is what I can see in the headset. The difference being that while you're seeing it on a 2D screen, it's very much kind of tunnel visioned. For me, it fills the entire vision. So it's completely immersive. Because of that, and the fact the table is quite close, can someone shout if I walk too close to that table? Okay. So I start off, you get to choose an avatar. So because I'm going to be presenting in a school, I can pick a random avatar just to represent myself. I'll go with her, why not? There's various scenarios. So the community centre, the school, the prison, and the Crown Court. I'm going to go with the school. OU students can upload their own slides. We're not going to do that, so I'm just going to do skip. So I start off, I'm in a school environment, so I can look all around. I can actually walk around the physical space. I'm being conscious not to do that too much. So I start off, I've got some cue cards here ready for when I give my presentation, and I can flick between those just to give me prompts. Here's the teacher, so I'm just going to talk to him just to get going. He's going to basically set the scene. He does go on for a little bit, unfortunately, so we'll have to wait until he finishes. But he's just going to tell me who I'm talking to.
It's good to meet you. Thanks for coming in to speak to our students. We have set up the IT equipment as you requested. The students have been looking forward to your presentation. As we discussed, they are a mixed ability group, and some of them are interested in studying law, but most of them are interested in current affairs, so they all enjoy a good debate. So you should expect some good questions. Good luck.
Right, I'm going to get ready to go into the room now. Not quite sure what I'm going to be greeted with. Okay. So now I'm actually standing in front, oops, standing a bit too close. Now I'm actually standing in front of the class. This is the point where I'd actually give my presentation. As I said, I've got a board of slides on the wall. I've got my cards here. I've got a menu where I can flick between the slides. So as I'm talking, I can just quickly change slides like you would do in a normal presentation. I can flick between my cards as well, just to give me prompts for what I'm going to say. These audience members will all react based on what I'm doing. So at the moment, they're all sitting there. That guy over there is looking a little bit, almost just perked up. He's noticed I've spotted him. But they will all react based on what I'm doing. So if I stand there and I just basically start reading off my slides off the wall, which some people do, they'll all start sitting. They might start chatting to each other or something like that. She's already talking to me. Who she's talking to, but so they all react. So I've got a timer there. So basically, I just give my presentation. And thank you. So basically, I give my presentation. Normally, we're expecting to give around a sort of 10-minute presentation. At which time anything could happen. So there could, in theory, be someone's phone could go off, or any kind of distraction that you might get in a kind of a real scenario. When I've finished, I can ask the audience if they've got any questions. Some people putting their hands up, so let's see who's got a question. You.
I think my school has breached my human rights. Can you help me sue them?
So I can go through, I can answer as many questions or as few as I want. I could end it now. So once I choose to end the presentation, I get to see how I've done. So I did okay. I did 4 stars. So 4 out of 5. So I did okay. I obviously gave good eye contact. I didn't just read off or look at the floor or anything like that. Once I've done that, I can save my replay audio and then I can listen to it back, or I can watch the replay now. So if I go to watch replay, I'm now actually in the audience watching my avatar, who I selected earlier, give my presentation. I don't know if you'll be able to hear the presentation because it's recording it off the laptop. You might just be able to make it. I can just about hear it. But essentially, it's going to replay my audio. Oops, I'm standing in the middle of my desk. I replay my audio. I'm replaying where I was looking at. I can see how everybody felt. So I know there's someone got bored earlier on. I can also switch to a visualization mode, which gives me kind of an overview. So green being people that were engaged with what I was saying, dark red being very unengaged. So the people at the back weren't really paying attention. There's a few people at the sides, particularly this side, or this side as I'm looking at it. I've no idea which way I'm facing now. I've probably got my back to you. So these people weren't particularly engaged. So I know when I come to do the presentation in the future that maybe I need to engage the people at the back a little bit more than maybe I did this time. So when I finish, I can just quit, and I can either go through it again or listen to saved recordings. Listen to saved recordings, or basically run through it as many times as I like until I get good at the presentation and feel like I've done well at it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jamie, for risking life and limb in showing us the VR app. So I'll take questions on that if you've got any comments on it. It'd be great to hear them. So that's just one part of what we're doing. So that supports the students going in to give face-to-face presentations, and even for those who aren't able to attend a face-to-face presentation, we would argue that this kind of immersive experience gives students an ability to test out their presentation skills and have that kind of sense of nervousness. Because when you've got the goggles on, walking into a room and there's some fairly sullen looking faces in there looking at you, it does get the heart rate going a little bit. So in addition to some of the face-to-face activities, I just want to reprise some of the other ways in which we're using technology. I've mentioned the virtual law clinic. This is quite a rare thing within the UK. Most university law clinics are done face-to-face, so students will, under the supervision of solicitors in a room, interview clients and do some legal research for them. But the way we're running it, and the link there is to the website where you can see how you actually request help from the law clinic, is that members of the public are invited to use our online system to log a legal query that they've got. If it's an area that we've got expertise to cover and the capacity to do so, we'll take the case forward. The students will interview the clients online to get the details of the legal problem. They'll go away and do the research and produce a letter of advice, which will be signed off by one of my colleagues who have a practicing certificate. So that's the virtual law clinic. So again, that's really helpful for our Open University students who might not be able to come to a particular building at a particular time for the reasons that I've explained. Also, we're trying to think about how to provide public legal education activities and opportunities for students who aren't able to attend a prison, attend a school, or work with a partner organisation like the Citizens Advice or the Personal Support Unit, all of whom we've got collaborative arrangements with. So what we're doing is we're trying to think about how we can use our website, use our digital presence, use the expertise within the law school to encourage students to research particular areas of law that might be relevant to particular communities. So for example, we've worked with St Giles Trust, which is a charity that supports recently released offenders to integrate them back into the community. And we've developed some education and information resources for clients of that organisation. So the idea is that students will be briefed by a particular organisation. It could be a charity, it could be a group within the university who perhaps have got an interest in a legal issue. So it could be something around, say, the basics of a tenancy. And we get the students to explain that in a way that's accessible, easy to understand for a layperson. And in doing so, we'd increase levels of public legal literacy. So the mechanism we're going to try and use for this, and this is something that we're going to be experimenting with in the spring and early summer, is to brief students in small groups. They'll be supervised by some legal academics, and they'll have an output that will be put on the website, and we're going to advertise this and get some momentum going using our Twitter account and develop an online festival of justice in our Open Justice Week, which takes place at the first week in May, so from the 30th of April. So this is another way we're trying to get you students to think about how to use social media technology in a professional way. And then finally, I'd just like to highlight, because I'm aware I'm running out of time, just the knowledge exchange ambitions we have. And we have been talking to different partners within the free advice sector to leverage the technology that we've developed within the Open University to support online distance learning for the training of their advisors in the free advice sector, and also to develop and leverage the expertise that exists within these organisations and make it more accessible to a wider audience. So to that end, we have received funding from the Equality and Human Rights Commission to work with Advice UK to develop a pilot online learning module that will support the training and education of advisors within the Advice UK network, especially in relation to discrimination and human rights law. So that's an example of the way in which our ambitions are to try and support the wider legal community, especially the free advice sector. So it's a work in progress. I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts around what we've done so far, and perhaps some advice on what you think would be useful and how we could make a contribution to the wider community, and also provide students with the opportunity to adjust to the digital economy. So I'd just like to bring those questions back up now before we move into a discussion. Because what I asked you to begin with is how can we as universities support students in navigating a world that is being transformed by digital technology? What role should we play within the OU Law School? And what's going on within your own sector about how technology is transforming your area of work? So I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you very much for coming in so early, and thank you very much for your attention.